welcome back to the On the Ball podcast. This is episode 130 of the show. Could be completely wrong with 130 there, but that's what I believe it is. Once again, joined by Rowey for a weekly AFL review / preview. How are we, Rowey?
I'm all right, thanks, mate. How are you? I think it might be 131 because I think that's the second week in a row I've heard 130. But
yeah, I'm pretty sure I said 130 last week, but I looked at Spotify and the last one uploaded was 129. So I think I've got the numbering wrong on Spotify somewhere. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it is actually 131. Big appreciations to you because I did tell you we were going to start recording 45 minutes ago. But anyway,
that's all right,
mate. Appreciate you for sticking around on Tuesday night. This potty should go up a bit earlier than the last few weeks since we are doing it earlier in the week, so that's ideal. But same format pretty much as last week. We may as well start it off really straight into it. Winners and losers from round 9 of the AFL, Rowey. Who are you looking at as the big winners?
North Melbourne, finally. I tipped them as the upset of the week, and they got up for me. Had the money on them, unfortunately in a multi, and the last leg didn't get up, which was GWS. But nonetheless, huge winners, North Melbourne. We knew that they weren't going to go 0-22. So I knew Hawthorn's, I think it's the second year in a row where the team that's, 0-something is knocked off the Hawks for their first win. Obviously, last year was Adelaide. But obviously, huge win for them. Just gave them a lot of confidence. And I think showed everyone that obviously they're having a really shocking year and it was expected. But really shows they're not too far behind these teams like Hawthorn and Adelaide and so on. And I'll touch on Hawthorn later in the podcast, but really wasn't impressed with them at all. Another one of the winners was the Dogs. I think they showed incredible mental toughness given they were down early in the first quarter. And obviously that was one of the things they lacked when they played the Tigers a few weeks back, which was obviously a season-defining game for both clubs. And then talking about the Tigers, they're also another big winner for mine. Once again, for the second time this year, like we saw against the Dogs and the Tigers, they came back and brought about a really, really hard-fought victory, especially missing a lot of depth players. They had their centre bounce attendees being like RCD and just role players like Liam Baker is one that had an awesome game. But yeah, it was a very wounded outfit that managed to get on top of the Giants who had struck a bit of form, and this has obviously hurt them as well as the loss of Toby Green. But 2 wins from the Dogs and the Tigers, which I think just sort of proved their mental toughness. That's what I got away from those 2 wins. And obviously North's just very fulfilling win, I have to say. But yeah, what about you?
Yeah, agree with all those shouts. Well done to North. Not sure where I sit with Hawthorn right now, but anyway, we'll talk about them in a bit as you mentioned. The other one I'll probably touch on is Essendon. I know they were the bookies' favourite, so it doesn't seem that outrageous, but I legit thought Freo were a very good chance. And for a young team, you'd probably expect inconsistencies, but they've been fairly consistent this year. They've pretty much been in almost every game they've played in. Even the losses have been tight. I remember the Sydney one was within a goal from memory. So they're having a surprisingly pretty impressive year. So good weekend for 2 teams who we thought would be sitting at the bottom of the ladder in North and Essendon. North still are sitting down there, but 2 very happy supporter bases and player groups right now. Also, shout out to Brisbane. Probably going to touch on Gold Coast more in that clash, but Brisbane probably the most informed team right now. You'd have to say they've had a really good month. They've been putting away some teams that they should beat, but given the form they started with in the first few weeks, we were maybe thought a few of them could be danger games. But yeah, the way they just blew open that Q clash, and I think it was the second quarter, was really impressive and showed that they're not completely out of the picture in terms of the premiership and top 4 and that stuff. They've now leapt into the top 4 after Port Adelaide's loss. And yeah, good win from Brisbane. All right, losers though, obviously like to focus on the positives more, but there were a fair few losers, mate. We'll probably start with Hawthorn since we started with North. It's just not good enough, is it? A club that in the last, since 2005 probably have been one of the standout clubs with obviously, I think 4 premierships across that period. And they look like they're just a rabble right now. rumours of Clarkson going to Collingwood, replacing Nathan Buckley, have started circling, which is interesting for both parties. But yeah, worrying signs for the Hawks. I know we touched on it a bit last week, but what do you make of the Hawks?
I'll quickly address that Clarkson to Buckley, replacing Buckley rumor. I think Buckley's rumour to sign a 1-year extension, so I think he might be at the Pies next year again. But I haven't actually heard about that Clarkson one, so Scoops McCorkadale there delivering on the ball. But I've obviously heard that Buckley will be there next year, which caught me off guard, but fair enough. They're sticking with him. So, the Hawks. I mean, this sort of comes about as a bit of a result of their list management over the past few years. It hasn't just been this year. They recruited in O'Meara and Wingard and all that to get the premierships, but obviously ever since that's happened, they've just gone downhill. And as a result of that, they don't have many young talent coming through. They've obviously got Warple, who we touched on a few episodes ago, but don't know about his ceiling. And apart from that, there's really not much, to be honest. They've obviously got CJ off halfback, which has been a revelation this year. But if you're thinking about, top 10, top 15 draft picks, the only one that really comes to mind over the last few years is Denver Granger Brass, who hasn't played a game yet. He was drafted last draft, and Will Day as well, who obviously showed a lot of promise but got injured. But apart from that, they don't have a lot of young talent on the list. It's a lot of sort of middle ages that, I don't know, they're not going to take him to the next premiership, let's be honest. They're not that good. So, it's really worrying signs, and I think it is a result of the last sort of 5 years and their reluctance to accept that they're going to have to go through a little mini rebuild. There was sort of a lot of resistors to the change of Hawthorn. They went through this whole stage of premierships, bringing in players to keep us in the hunt, and they sort of ignored the fact that their players getting old. Obviously a few move, they thought we can just replace them. But in the end, I think it was just Clarkson's obviously the main one, the one that wanted to resist the change of having to go through this sort of mini rebuild. And obviously it's costed them because they really don't have much young talent on the list at the moment. The fact you can barely name any off the top of your head speaks for itself. So I think it's just a result of the last few years of list management that they're in the position they're in right now. Obviously the Suns, I think you've been a huge doubter of them this year, so I'll let you touch on them. GWS just choking. Obviously, they were in form. They were ahead by about 4 or 5 goals. They had Jesse Hogan's mammoth second quarter, and they're obviously against a wounded and young Richmond side. Unfortunately, couldn't get the job done there. Port Adelaide as well. Really disappointing loss for them. If they wanted to be premiership fancies, they're not anymore, I don't think. I was listening to, I don't know who it was on the radio, but they were going through the sort of the top teams in the competition, and they were naming their matches they've played against top 8 teams. I think Sydney was a big improver. Last year, I think they barely beat a top 8 team. They had a shocking percentage against them all. And this year, they're 3-1 against them or something like that. All the teams they touched on had really strong records, except for Port Adelaide this year. I think they were 1-3 or 1-4 with a percentage of 70 against top 8 teams. And that really surprised me, and it really turned me off them for the time being. So I think that loss to the Bulldogs on the weekend just justifies that. Just shows that, I'm sorry, Pilch, but just shows that right now it's hard to see them progressing deep into September. If they're going to keep up this record against the top quality teams in the competition, they've definitely got the talent to prove me wrong on that, and I hope they do because I love watching them play. But I think that current stat is really meaningful to the state that they're in at the moment. Obviously, it's not a dreadful state or anything like that. And then again, it was only one loss in the weekend that brought about this comment. But at the end of the day, you can't ignore it. So I'll leave it at that. And Freo as well. I feel as though they're not getting many wins where they're upsetting teams, Freo, or they're causing big upsets. And I think they're also losing games, or these type of games, where they come up against a team where they should be favoured against. And they were, I think, until the market kind of swayed late. But they were favoured against Essendon initially, and they are a better team than Essendon, and they should have beaten them. But the fact that Essendon had the home game, played in front of their crowd, it was a type of game that Freo were destined to lose, I feel. I feel they lose a lot of these type of games where it's fairly level. They do have the quality, but they go down because of, the home crowd or something like that. So I think, that they're not achieving anything more than what they are at the moment, which isn't great for them because they're not growing in a sense. I think lots of the people saw them as finals chances this year. Doesn't look like that's going to happen now. But yeah, unfortunately, they've got the quality, no doubt about that. But unfortunately, for the time being, not too sure on where they're sitting at the moment. I was very impressed by the Bombers. I backed them. I backed Harry Jones for 3 goals. He kicked 2 in the first 5 minutes and couldn't get another flipping disposal for the rest of the game. But nonetheless, it was a good win for the Bombers. But yeah, just a bit of a what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, a bit of a gutless loss for them, I think, on the weekend. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely huge game for them this weekend up against Sydney in Perth as well. So I think right now the market's even, but we'll chat about that towards the end of the episode where we make our predictions. Gold Coast is the biggest loser for me. Absolutely whacked by the big brother in the Brisbane Lions. What was the margin in the end? 73 points. Everyone was saying this could be one of the most competitive Q clashes yet. To be honest, I'm not surprised that was the margin. Obviously, it's still crap, but I wasn't getting really the hype that Gold Coast were a chance. But yeah, Brisbane without their star player Lockie Neal, the fact that they can just outmuscle Gold Coast like that without any resistance. I know Gold Coast were missing a few players and they're still ruckless, but yeah, not really good enough from the Suns. And right now they sit in 14th position. And I tell you what, I don't know what Gold Coast Suns fans think or if there are any, but
if there are any.
if they finish 14th or worse, this year, I think Stewie Jew's in serious danger. I know they've got a young list. They look good in every now and then. They've had a couple decent wins in the past fortnight, but they've got to start getting results or at least being competitive in almost every game. We look at a team like Essendon who probably have a lot less talent, I'd say, than Gold Coast. Definitely a lot less top-end draft picks, and they're getting blown out like that. So yeah, if they finish 14th or below, I think Stewie Jew would be looking behind his back. Stewie Joe. It seems like he's loved by the players. He seems like a very good bloke based on the documentary on Amazon Prime. But yeah, he's got to start getting results somewhere. And right now, it's very patchy performances. They probably put up one good match every 3 weeks at this rate. And that's why they're down in 14th with teams like Collingwood and stuff. So they've got to start picking up some wins and, competing on the ladder with the teams like Carlton, St Kilda, Freo, who are probably all in similar stages to them. I know their ages are a lot less, but in terms of skill, there's no reason why they shouldn't be up there with them. And then the Port Adelaide thing, I know you said it's just one game, but I think we can't brush over this. I think it's 1 and 3. They lost to Brisbane, West Coast, and Bulldogs. And apart from the Bulldogs one, that was at home, but still a 20-point loss, I think. And then the other 2 were absolute floggings. They've really got to pull their act together. And the problem is with Port Adelaide, they'll come out this weekend against Collingwood, pump them by 50, and everyone will be playing happy families again. But yeah, it's they've got to kind of hit that next level, if you know what I mean. They can't just be happy with pumping Adelaide in the showdown, pumping, Carlton at the G. They've got to start taking it to these big teams regularly. And yes, they got their win against Richmond earlier in the season, but too many weak performances in these big games. And the chances of them just plucking it out of their arse in finals if they're not competing with the big teams in the regular season, it's going to be pretty hard for them. So they've definitely got to look at a strategy, a way to beat these big teams when they do come up against them, especially at home, which you'd think there'd be a good chance to beat most of them at home. So yeah, I think that was really disappointing for Port. I know the Dogs are a good team, and we probably should be more positive and look at the Dog side of the coin. But yeah, I can't really not mention that from Port because that's not good enough at the moment. But yeah, as I said, they'll come out and pump Collingwood, and everyone will go, "What are we talking about? They're a great team." But until they start beating these top 8 teams regularly, I don't really know what to make of them. So that's it for me with the losers. We've pretty much touched on every team there in the competition, so I think we did pretty well. Now you're part of the show, mate. Your top 8 and your players of the week. Let rip, mate.
Beauty. Firstly, I think we're experiencing a bit of technical difficulties right here. I think a few of my comments get recognised like 5 seconds after I say them. So apologies to any listeners. I don't know whose fault that is, but slap on the wrist for whoever's it is. But for the top 8, this Port Adelaide thing, it's the reason I don't have them in first or second anymore. I'm going to have the Dogs in there. I think they've shown that. I know they had their loss to Richmond the other week, but they just come out with 2 really mentally tough wins over the last couple of weeks and defied what that we all said. It was clear they would have addressed that after that loss against the Tigers, and obviously they came back from a mile back against Carlton and then did the same against Port Adelaide. So for that reason, I'm going to have them in on top. The D's as well in second. It's going to be very hard for them to miss. Well, I mean, top 2 or 3, let alone top 4, given they're 9-0 now. I still think the Dogs are going to overtake them. I think they play each other next week, not this week, coming to the week after. That is going to be a huge game. It'll be probably the most hyped game of this season so far. And I think the Dogs are going to get up on them. I think the D's will eventually going to lose a game. And it was funny on the weekend. I don't know if you were watching Carlton Melbourne, but the game was so quiet on the TV. I don't know if you noticed that, but Brian Taylor was whispering and we could hear him and the crowds were just silent. Go back and watch a bit of the game and you'll understand what I mean. But it was really weird. I saw some of the comments on the weekend and people had the same thing. So it wasn't just like my TV or anything. But it was almost like, Melbourne were just sort of holding their breath, waiting for the next worst thing to happen. And I think they will lose next week against the Dogs, but I can't wait for that. But I'm going to have those teams in as the top 2. So Dogs and then the Ds. It's great. I've said this a million times on this podcast. It's great to not have a clear-cut favourite for the flag. I don't have, I'm not saying Dogs are going to win the flag, D's are going to win the flag. I have no confidence that this will be the order that ladder finishes in, which is fantastic. But I'm going to have the Cats in at 3. I don't think they're going to finish out of the top 4 now. I think I know that it wasn't a really convincing win against the Saints, and honestly, we should have won. I'm not going to touch on Max King because whenever I hear a negative word about him, I just want to gut the person and feed it to my dog. But I'm going to have the Cats in at 3. I think that extra avenue to goal really helps them, and their talent on their list is awesome. Port Adelaide in at 4. I know we've just touched on them, and I think they're going to drop down a little bit. But like the Dogs did against the Tigers, I think they'll address this issue that they're having, and hopefully they can stem the bleeding a little bit, stop whatever sort, at least make the situation a bit better for them. I'm going to have the Tigers in at 5th. I think they'll just drop a few too many games given where their injury list is at. And they never really finish in the top 2 or anything like that anyway. Obviously, they're going to fire in September. They always do. I'm going to have the Lions in at 6th. I know that's a little bit controversial given they've just leapt into the top 4, but they were playing against Gold Coast on the weekend, and it's probably the worst Gold Coast have played this season so far. And they've sort of fluctuated down the bottom end of my top 8 during the whole year, and it's because they have actually made their way out of that top 8 at one point. I just don't think they're good enough to overtake the teams ahead of them. Very happily will be proved wrong because I love their list. But unfortunately, I'm going to have them in at 6th. Eagles in at 7th. Not really too much to be said there. I think they're too good to miss out, but not good enough at the moment to overtake anyone ahead of them. Plus their injury list, sort of same situation as Richmond, I guess. And then the Swans at 8th. They're just continuing to chalk up these wins that they've got to get in order to stay in the finals hunt, which is very good from them. Shows they're very mentally tough team. They're distancing themselves away from the teams that are bearing down on them. When I say bearing down, all these teams that I'm about to name just lost. But Freo and GWS and Carlton, St Kilda, they're keeping the distance from them, which is very positive for them. So the more and more wins that they chalk up like these ones, these sort of close, iffy 50-50 games, the better chance they're going to have to make finals, and I think they will. So that's the top 8. Unfortunately, all those teams I just mentioned are going to miss out. But yeah, I just realised all those collective teams in the hunt lost on the weekend, and the Swans won. So Swans got a game ahead of all of them, which is handy for them. But yeah, my plays of the week. After watching, I prioritised watching the Richmond GWS game on the Saturday night. I don't know why. I just did. I wanted to see Hugo Ralsmith play, and I needed Riley Collie Dawkins to play well because I fielded him over like 3 bench playing players, and he got 88, so I was very happy with that. But for this reason, I noticed the impact of Dusty. He had 28 touches and 4 goals. He was the difference. Without him, they wouldn't have won, and they probably wouldn't. They wouldn't have come back. I don't think Dusty really inspired them. He was a force to be reckoned with out there, and he was huge for the Tigers. Probably another 3 votes for him. The Bond's in at second. Another huge game for him on the other channel. Similar game, 26 touches and 2 goals. And I'd love to see his Brownlow odds at the moment because he's just having a career best season, I think, at the moment. He's just well and truly ended that Cripps Spont debate for now, like we mentioned last episode, and just making Saints fans hurt a little bit more every week. And at 3, first time I reckon a North Melbourne's player has made it onto this list this season, but Ben Cunnington, the man that looks like he could be one of the eldest in a retirement home, picked up 37. 27 of them were contested, but also only 1 was a turnover. So he was very efficient with the ball and was just an animal for them in that middle. So against a team that many Hawthorn list management officials would have hoped would be playing finals 10 years down the track, with an elite midfield of Tom Mitchell, Brownlow winner, and Jago O'Meara, next big thing, and Chad Wingard from Port Adelaide. Cunnington and Jai Simpkin, honourable mention, just ran through them and were just too strong after quarter time. So that was huge from them. And that's going to be my top 3 of the week. It's a bit hard to pick. There wasn't too many massive standouts. There wasn't any sort of bags of 7 or like 40. Just one. I know Cunnington and Simpkin had 37, 38, but, no sort of 37, 38s from like really hard damaging top end players. So it was a bit more of an even week. And I think that showed in the SuperCoach as well. None of my players got over like 125. So it wasn't the best week for me, but I'll let you read out your rookie of the week.
Oh, I'll be honest, I actually have not done my rookie of the week, but you mentioned it's a repeat offender, so I'm interested to hear who you've gone with.
Yes, so I know that who was it? Tom Green won the Rising Star nomination. Well done to him. I think he's an awesome player. I don't have him. I was tempted by RCD, but I don't have him. His 2 goals really helped his match. Apart from that, he was still a little bit fumbly with the ball and a few clangers here and there. So I'm not going to have him in there as well. Caleb Poulter, my inclusion into my... Sorry, this is just almost a wrap-up of my SuperCoach team. But Poulter was decent as a youngster out there with the best mark in the game. But I'm going to give it to the repeat offender of James Jordan. 20 touches, 13 tackles against the Blues. And he's just continually becoming such an important part of their midfield. I know he's obviously not the Petraka or the Oliver of the team, but he's the next one in there. And, it's a very handy play to have in those centre bounces when you're, giving Petraka or Oliver time off. So he was huge. He's just continuously becoming a better and better player week by week from the APS Scholar. And he is proving to be the best rookie in the SuperCoach this season. It's been very handy and been someone we can sort of set and forget for now since the first half of the season, which has been handy for us. And also Melbourne, I guess. It's been someone that they can just rely on week in, week out to have these little sort of 16, 17, 18, this week, 20 touch games with most of them being contested. Just a bit of a bull in there. So that was awesome from him. And to lead the game in the tackle count as well was huge from a player that's about 19, 20 years old, less than 10 games in his first year of proper AFL football. So that was unreal from him. And I'll let you move it on to the best segment in the podcast.
Yeah, obviously that is the redrafting, but I've got a couple of questions for you, mate, first. I was going to jump in, but I wasn't sure how big the lag was, so I didn't want to interrupt your flow, but just wanted to get your thoughts. on that group of four, I think you mentioned GWS, Freo, Carlton, St Kilda. Let's say Sydney collapse from here. Which team do you think is the next best of that four teams you mentioned?
Ooh. Are we talking best or best chance of making finals?
I'll go best chance of making finals.
That's a very, very good question. Because I'm looking at the ladder now. So GWS, Freo, and Saints are all on 16 points, which is one behind eighth, which is actually Richmond. Carlton are joined by Essendon, Gold Coast, and Adelaide on 12 points, so 3 wins. And yeah, look, I think Sydney will, if there is a team to drop out, I think it will be Sydney. So there's only one spot available, in my opinion, for that top 8 spot. I don't think it's going to be Freo. I can't see them getting up and making finals. I can't see them winning these. Well, they're dropping these sort of games that they probably should be winning on paper games against teams like Essendon. I don't think they're going to be able to make the finals because they're not going to probably be able to beat the teams that are ahead of them. Carlton, I don't think it's... Well, I mean, to be honest, the losses they've had, there hasn't been any losses that from teams that are below them. Most of their losses this year have been against teams that are above them, and some of them have been disappointing. Some of them have been chokes, but I still think it would take a lot from Carlton to make the finals from here, but I'm not writing them off. Yeah, the Saints, you don't really know what we're going to get from us at the moment, let's be real. The last couple of weeks have been pretty promising. The Hawks game was the best game we played this year by a mile. The Gold Coast game was a bit of an ugly win, and on the weekend, obviously, we should have won. So it's very sort of up and down. So I'd love to say I know how we're going to perform the rest of the year, but in all honesty, I don't. I have a sneaky suspicion we're going to challenge the Dogs this week, so I think we match up well against them. But in saying that, we could easily get beaten by 10 goals, depends which outfit turns up, and that's just the case for the whole season. My gut feel says we won't make finals, so unfortunately that leaves it up to GWS. And honestly, I think they're the best chance, but that has hurt now that Toby Green has just announced, well, not announced, sorry. It's been announced that Toby Green is out for a while. I can see you shaking your head there because I think you just brought him in. And so, yeah, I'm really torn on that question. It's a very good question to ask me because if you had asked me yesterday, even though they sort of had a mini choke on the weekend, or actually not a mini, bit of a major choke on the weekend, I would have said GWS. They hit that little bit of form, which helped. And out of the 4, I think their list sort of suggests they are in the best position to make that finals jump. But yeah, I really don't know. I'll be honest. I reckon it's between GWS and St Kilda and Carlton. I think Freo are last, unfortunately. But I think it's just a mix between those 3. Maybe GWS slightly ahead of Saints and Carlton. But yeah, I'm going to leave my answer very open-ended like that. And I'd love to see what my answer is in the sort of next few weeks because I think that's going to be very telling as to where the season's at. I think a huge game this week for GWS. They're playing West Coast and at home. So my answer could be different next week, but we will wait and see.
Yeah, I actually agree with you there. For me, it would be GWS, most likely to make finals. I'd have St Kilda with the highest ceiling, but I think they're performing well, we saw it last year, but I think they're performing a fair way off that at the moment. And then Carlton, I just think they have too many honourable losses that they rack up. And then Freo, they're just crap away from home, a bit like West Coast. So yeah, I'd agree with GWS, but I completely agree with your top 8. I think Sydney are a fair bit better than those teams at the moment anyway. I was just listening to your top 8 there. Finals sounds so juicy. I know we're only 10 rounds in, so we shouldn't be thinking to September, but just to some of the matchups, you had Brisbane West Coast in an elimination final, then let's say Brisbane and Richmond win their elimination finals. They would be playing the loser of the 2, what do they call them? Qualifying finals, I guess. But the top 4 games that... look, I don't want to shit on Melbourne because they should obviously be enjoying this period.
Can't wait.
I see a straight sets exit for Melbourne. I hate to be mean to them, but I'll let them enjoy their period of dominance for now. But yeah, that's scary stuff. Playing Richmond or Brisbane in a sudden death second week of finals. But yeah, redrafting the 2014 draft this week. We were just talking off air. Rowey said this was tough. I actually didn't find this one too tough, but I probably put a limited amount of research, and so maybe that made it easier just randomly picking names. So once again, as I have the last few weeks, I don't even know who's mature age. So I'm going to say my 10, and then Rowey can let me know if there's any mature ages in my 10 after, and then he'll chat about his 10. So starting off with the honourable mentions, I might be saying some of your plays here, but I will just quickly touch on them. Gus Brayshaw, Jordan Tagoe, Liam Duggan, Lockie Weller, and Dan Butler, I believe, are the people who made my shortlist but didn't make it. All right, starting from number 10. This guy is weird. I find it hard to get a grip on how good he is because he seems to just kick goals every time he plays, but it's not like a name you see in the opposition lineup and you go, oh crap, he's dangerous. But it's Jeremy Finlayson. I think he's pretty handy for 3 goals a week, that kind of bloke. He was a very good second fiddle to Jeremy Cameron now. Him and Himmelberg, I guess, the big dogs in town. I don't know if Jesse Hogan's the big dog or whatever's going on there, but uh, still, as we mentioned in the past few weeks, tall key position players are hard to find. And I think Jeremy Finlayson, he was a very low pick. I know that for sure. But I think he's a pretty decent player. So he's my number 10. Number 9, this is a personal favourite of mine. I would have him higher, but I know I would probably get roasted. But Braden Maynard, ever since he came into the league, I love the way he plays. He's probably playing a little bit of mid time here or there, especially with Collingwood's injury list, but has excelled in defensive roles in the past, which is pretty hard to find. I know I keep saying that about most positions on the park, but it's fair to say. And yeah, I love the way he goes about it. So he's my number 9. Number 8, before this year, he might have missed my top 10, but this year, Tuke Miller, he's had a really good start to the year. He could be higher in some people's list, but especially if he played for a Melbourne team, to be honest, he probably would be higher. I'll openly admit that. But he's my number 8. Number 7, similar to Braden Maynard and Finlayson, I like that his position's pretty rare these days. There's not too many genuine wingers, but Ed Langdon is certainly one of the best in the competition, if not the best at the moment. He showed signs at Fremantle, but came across to Melbourne and excelled. Basically, that's been a really, really good pickup from them. Wears the long sleeves as well, which I love. Number 6, before this, maybe 2 years ago, if we did redrafted this guy would be in my top 3, but his injury issues have continued, which I thought he would grow out of, and he's turned into a lot more of a forward than a midfielder. But Isaac Heaney, people were saying he was probably a top 3 pick in this because he was a Sydney Academy player. He fell down all the way to like 16th or 17th or something. But I love the man. Reminds me too much of our good mate Tom Morris. But sadly, can't put him any higher than 6 today. Even though I think his potential's so high. Number 5, I think he's one of the best centre half backs in the comp when he does play there. He's been playing a bit of forward this year, but Darcy Moore, very slow start to his career. He played as a forward for I think his first 2 seasons and basically had 0 impact. Looked like a big flop. I think he might have been a top 10 pick, but he's a pretty good backman and one of the best players in that Collingwood lineup by a fair way, given how bad they are at the moment. Number 4, Jakey Lever. Got picked up by Adelaide and then moved over to Melbourne, I think 2 years ago. Has had a few injury issues. I think he might have missed 1 or 2 years with serious knee injuries, but he's a pretty good player and he's shown it this year. Him and Stephen May are one of the best 1-2 back defensive duos, so I think he's a really good player. Number 3, I'll go with Rowey's man, Jack Steele. He is a bit of a steal. I think he was about pick 24 or something like that. And that's turned out to be very, very good value. GWS picked him up, decided just to keep him in the NEAFL for most of his career. He tore it up week in, week out, but that wasn't enough for him to crack, at the time, a very star-studded midfield. And he moved down to Melbourne and he's really shown the whole competition how good of a player and how good-looking of a player he is. Number 2, this is controversial because I reckon he would be a consensus number 1 pick for 90% of the world. Well, the world's a bit outrageous, but people who would be redrafting. But it's Christian Petraka. Uh, I remember this draft very fondly because this was my first year in Melbourne, so I remember this draft pretty much off by heart. But he was a pretty high pick. I think was he top three, top four. Were him and Brayshaw 2 and 3 or 3 and 4?
Two.
All right, he was number 2. There you go.
Petraka 2, Brayshaw 3. Believe me,
Yeah,
I know.
I remember. Was it year 9 options, and you taught us the whole like top 30 picks or something of the draft.
I told you like the whole top. Well, I recited the top 50, and I got Brownie to recite the top 25. I think so. It
Yeah,
was a fair effort.
I think I got to like pick 19 or 20 myself, but yeah, that's what we did when we were hiking the trails of where was that? Was that the Blue Mountains? Yeah, I think so.
Blue Mountains. It was an unreal trip actually.
Yeah, that was good. But yeah, here's the number 2. I know people probably think he's right up there with the best players in the competition, but I just think I know he's a very unique player in the way he goes about it, a bit like a Dusty, but I think the guy I have a number 1 is the best player in his position in the competition, and that is Harris Andrews. I've mentioned it before. I'm in absolute awe of this bloke. I just think if you watch Brisbane, if you take him out, I don't even think they're a good team. They're still a good team. They've got a lot of guns, but I don't think they're a top 8 team without Harris Andrews. It reminds me a lot of my soccer team in about under 16, under 17. We had the gun centre back. You know him by the name of Noah Behrens, and it reminds me a lot of that. If you took him out, we were absolute garbage. And that's what I think of Harris Andrews. Seems like he defends about 2 or 3 blokes at once and takes intercepts at the same time. I don't know how he does it, but yeah, I absolutely love Harris Andrews. So he's my number 1. Controversially ahead of Petraka, but any mature ages in there. Otherwise, feel free to let rip with your top 10.
No mature ages in there. I don't think, unless it's off by a year. But I don't think there was any. It was the one year there where there weren't any sort of standout mature ages, which is nice for the young kids. So honourable mention to me, Dougal Howard. Yeah, no, unfortunately couldn't get him in there. Ed Langdon as well. I know you had him pretty high up there. And believe me, I loved his transition from Freo to Melbourne and becoming a solid player, or really solid player for them. And, could well be the way they win a premiership really helped with their drive down the ground. In fairness, could have easily made it in there, but unfortunately just couldn't. Probably my 11th picked. Bailey Dale, obviously having a very good year for the Dogs, was most improved in the competition, probably by a mile this year, but just couldn't quite get him in there. Lockie Weller, Liam Duggan, and Dan Butler, and Jeremy Finlayson. At number 10, I'm going to have Jordan De Goey. He's obviously had very, very good moments of his career. He's had some very, very poor moments off field and on field. He's had a contract offered to him, I think it was by North, that was very, let's say, inflated. And he kicked a bag against North a few weeks ago. And apart from that, he hasn't done anything in quite a long time. But the talent's there. He's got the Dusty traits, but hasn't been able to pull off the Dusty performances, or at least when he has, it's a couple of times in a season. But I think the talent's there enough to have him in this top 10. I'd love to have a player of his quality at the same time. I reckon he could do some real damage, but yeah, it's just been a bit of a rough patch with De Goey for the past sort of year and a bit. And number 9, got to have Isaac Heaney. I know you had him in the higher, and I'd love to, because if you're basing this off talent, he's in my top 3. But unfortunately, he just can't get on the park. And when he does, it's only for a couple of weeks, and then he's out again. So unfortunately, if this was a 2017 draft, he'd be higher. But they've been in the system for like 7 years now, 6 years, and it's just been nonstop. And you can't pick anyone else. So the guys I've got ahead of him, you've got to pick them ahead of him because they're playing full seasons. And unfortunately, Heaney isn't. He's not even playing half seasons really at the moment. So unfortunately, I can't have him any higher than 9th. I'd love to, because he's an awesome player. Everyone loves him, and the game's a better game when Isaac Heaney's playing and when he's fit and firing. Unfortunately, can't get him any higher. I think it was bidded on. It was weird academy rules back then. It was bidded on at like 2 or 3 by Melbourne with the picks that they had for Petraka and Brayshaw, but got matched by Sydney as it would in the modern day. But for some reason, it got pushed back to the end of the first round in some sort of weird drafts rule. they obviously fixed that because it didn't make any sense, and that's that. So at number 8, I've also got Took. The Took. Obviously been huge for Gold Coast since they picked him up all through those really down years when there was all this talk of relocation, all that. Took Miller just kept on firing in that midfield. And yeah, I agree. If he was playing for a club like Carlton or Essendon or someone like that, he'd be talked about so much more. I know especially if he played, I know how Carlton fans are. If he played for Carlton, he'd have his own religion by this point in time. Like imagine a midfield of, Took, Cripps and Walsh. Like, I don't even like male supporters of Carlton wouldn't be able to produce any babies this year because all of their production's gone into just worshipping that midfield. But if he played for a team like Carlton, he'd be just heavily touted. Unfortunately, barely gets any recognition because he plays for Gold Coast. And number 7, Caleb Daniel. Look, yeah, I can't, that's one player I don't think you actually touched on.
Yeah, I legit didn't even see it.
Yeah. I'll ask you where you put him.
That's not a height joke, by the way.
Didn't feet. You lined up everyone in the 2014 draft, and you set the barrier at 170 centimeters, and you couldn't quite see him. But yeah, look, he's one of the best kicks in the comp. But to be honest, he's had a bit of an easy role in his career, and yes, it's because he's got an incredible kick, and you need an incredible kick at that part of the ground coming out of the D50. But to be look, there are so many players that can play that role. And given Caleb's, let's say, stature, he can't play. Well, I mean, Lachie Neale does it. I was going to say you can't really play a massive, strong inside midfielder. I think he was sort of drafted as sort of a small forward, but grown out of that. Given his elite kick, you can't really play him anywhere else other than coming off halfback flank, and he doesn't defend, obviously. So he's got a bit of an easy-ish role, which is why I've sort of got him in at 7. Yes, he's got one of the best kicks in the comp, like I've said, but so was Bailey Dale, as we've seen this year. I couldn't get him into this top 10. So if you're going to be saying this best kick in the comp stuff, then you've got to have Dale in there as well. And unfortunately, you can't have them both. And I can only put Daniel as high as 7th. Apart from his kick, don't see what else he has to offer. But believe me, he's just been in All-Australian last year, and he's an incredible player with that boot. But yeah, if he didn't have that, then he's purely just a disposal player. It's the use of his disposal and his ability to rack it up. At number 6, I've got Braden Maynard, who you thought shouldn't be any higher than you had him, but I've definitely got him at 6. He's one of the best olden day defenders in the competition. Just strong, lot of aggression, just locks down one of the opposition's forwards. Very hard role to play as opposed to Daniel, and gets a lot of it too. I think on the weekend he had 29 touches. So to combine, his defensiveness and strength and just tagging ability, he's also got this ball getting ability, which not many defenders have in the competition anymore, which is really, really positive from him. He just missed out getting selected by Adelaide as a father-son. I think his dad was about 8 games off. So would have been awesome for the Crows to have him in there, but nonetheless, they don't. So at number 5, this is where I got a little bit easier. I found that 5 pretty hard to pick. But this is where it gets easy. I think number 5, Jakey Lever. We've seen how good he is this year in his partnership with Stephen May. Was obviously a very quality player at the Crows, and he's come over to Melbourne. And I think he started off a little bit slowly, but he's showing this year how good of a player he is, especially with May. So as we've always talked about in this podcast, key position players, quality ones, are really hard to come by. They take a while to develop. Lever didn't take too long, and yeah, he's going to be a lock in that Melbourne lineup for the years to come. And he's playing he's having a very, very good career for someone that hadn't played football in about a year or two when he got drafted because of an ACL. He was supposed to go top 10, went a little bit later in that first round because of that knee to the Crows. But it's obviously been huge for them this year. So him at number 5. Number 4, Darcy Moore. I know the football world and Collingwood club rant and rave about him, and yeah, so do I. He's an awesome player. Obviously had a slower start to his career, but has come on really well. Yes, the reason I don't have him higher because like we said, we rant and rave about these key position players, but his one-on-one abilities, like we saw early in the year, lots of his game is intercepting, taking these intercept almost uncontested marks, uncontested, and racking up a lot of cheapies behind the play. So sometimes his stats are a little bit inflated. I think against the North game, he had like 19 marks, but only like 1 or 2 were contested. But yeah, believe me, he takes incredible hangers in the game. He's got a really nice kick on him, and he's an athletic freak, and he can go forward when you need him to, but his best position's down back. But I think this, as we're going to see in my top 2, there's a key position player in there that does both. Man's on his man, the best tall forwards in the game, but also intercepts, racks up a lot of it. Darcy Moore racks up a lot of it, intercepts, not sure about the one-on-one. So at number 3, Jack Steele. Like you said, Hammer, an absolute steal in the 20s when the Giants got him. Well, it's showing to be now, but an absolute steal from the Saints to get him for a pick. Yeah, I think it was a future second round. Obviously came in the top 5 in the Brownlow last year, had a massive breakout season, and has really helped us in a lot of games where the rest of the team has not performed, especially in the last 2 years. I think the Gold Coast game, he was one of the only ones that really showed any heart. And a few other games this season, he's obviously done that where, he's kicked 2 or 3 and had 20-25. Melbourne game was one of the other really terrible losses where he was the only player that rocked up. He's just been a revelation for us, and I don't know where we'd be without him. Number 2, I'm going to go down your path as well. I definitely agree it's the right way to go, contrary to what you said about, the entire world not agreeing with you. But, yeah, I'm going to go Petraka with 2. He's obviously a phenomenal player in the forward line and in the middle. Just so gutting that we didn't take him. And it was one of those ones, because in the previous draft with Billings and Bott and all that, which I hope we'll talk about next week. I don't think we've done the redraft on that. I think me and Max Stroud and a few other fellow St Kilda fans were sold on Billings. We weren't considering Bont. He was a late jumper in the draft as well. He early on. No one was really talking about him. It was only until a few months before the draft he started to get recognition, and the last sort of few weeks leading up to it that he got into the top 5 calculations. So we were already sold on Billings by that point. So it's a bit harder to say, we picked Billings over Bont. But this one, we were on Petraka for months and months and months and months, and obviously we went McCartan over him. So this one, I'm claiming that we would have done it differently. So we could have had Petraka in that midfield with Steele. Unfortunately, we don't, but he's an incredible player that obviously got the dusty traits of the goal-kicking midfielder. Such a valuable position these days. So many Brownlows are won from it. When I say so many, there's only so many Brownlows to go around, but Brownlows are won from it, and I expect Petraka is hopefully going to win one. He obviously came very close last season, but a player of his, the types of players like the Petrakas, are going to be very hard to stop when they're fit and firing. But at number 1, it's obviously going to be Harris Andrews. Picked up in the 60s. I forget. I was doing this redraft. I was thinking, it's probably going to be Petraka. And then I saw Harris Andrews. I'm like, holy shit, that's right. There's Harris Andrews in this draft when I was just going over just then. So I think it was the first time we've done this when someone in the 60s has been, or at least just past pick 20, has been the number 1 pick. He's obviously got it all, Harris Andrews. He's incredible leader. He's incredible one-on-one. He's incredible in the packs. He's incredible intercepting. He's just an incredible player. He's the best tall defender in the competition. He's got it all. There's nothing he really lacks. Maybe he could get a touch more of the footy, but he racks up enough as he should. You really can't rack up much more of the footy if you're playing, man on man for a lot of the game and doing all this other stuff. So, Harris Andrews is definitely my number 1. He's almost a lock unless he gets injured, a lock for the tall defender position, one of them in the All-Australian teams for the next sort of, 5, 6, 7 years to come. He's an absolute animal, and he's definitely my clear-cut number 1. There was no debate there once I saw his name. That's the top 10. They were a bit similar actually. I thought they were going to be more different given our discussions prior to the potty, but I think they're a bit more similar than I was anticipating. Where would you have Caleb Daniel where would you slide him in now? Just out of interest.
Well, to be honest, if I redid it, I know this sounds like I'm just copying you, but yeah, I actually disagree with how low I have Braden Maynard. So I'd probably go Maynard
Yeah.
6, Daniel 7, Miller 8, and then Langdon 9. I'd probably, I think I've missed a number there, but yeah, he'd be somewhere in the 7 or 8 range. I don't think I'd have him too high. I don't think he's anywhere near the top
Yeah.
5. And then, yeah, he's in that mix with Heaney, Miller, Maynard for me. But yeah, I don't know. I just completely missed that on the draft list. But I tell you what, I want to play that Caleb Daniel role in local footy, but there's no there's no clean possession of the ball, so you actually physically can't do it. Like I actually think I'd be decent at it as well because I'm a little bitch, so I'm not good in the contest.
Yeah.
But like I'm decent. I'm a decent kick. I'm a decent kick, so I think I'd be okay at that. But yeah, I agree with you. It's a very easy role. Him and Jake Lloyd are they're shit blokes really, but nah. I respect it. It's cheeky, but I love it. But yeah, also big shout out to Liam Duggan. And I'm not bagging out West Coast here, but I think in a parallel universe, Liam Duggan would be in the top 5 of this draft. I think he's got one of the best kicking. I think he's one of the best kicks in the AFL. But the role he plays, he doesn't get many touches. So he's getting 14, 15 a week. And I think there was a game earlier this year. He got about 26 or 7 touches, and he was best on. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame the role he's playing. I don't think it's utilizing his skills as best as they can. And I think if he played somewhere else, he'd be a lot more damaging player. But yeah, I thought I'd just mention that because he's pretty handy. And while you were talking, I was just thinking about the Dogs, and I was thinking of Rookie of the Week. I completely forgot. If I had to pick one,
Cody, yeah.
Yeah, Cody Waitman kicked 3 goals, including over the head, where I'm surprised his hammy didn't pop. But yeah, that was very impressive. I still think he's going to be a gun. I remember watching him when he was in year 10, and he was taking pack marks despite being like 1.70 m at that point. So yeah, I think he's got more to give. But on to the Supercoach chat for the week, mate. I'll start us off. All right week. I thought I was going to crack the 100. Didn't end up getting there. I think I fell 10 to 20 short. But it wasn't the worst week. Increased in rank a little bit. Should be within the top 50, maybe 40k after the bye rounds. As I'm sure there's a lot of people in the top 60k who haven't really thought about buys, whereas I have. So that's something I obviously don't take advice from me because you're probably ranked above me to those listening. But yeah, your trades from here on in should really, well, for the next 3 or 4 weeks, definitely think about the buy rounds. Obviously, you still want to be getting the best players for your team. But, if you've got a 50-50 and one's got a better buy, really start to think about that, even if you've been forgetting about it up to this point. So yeah, my team's probably a little bit behind others. We were talking about it in our Supercoach chat, how many non-premiums everyone has left. As I mentioned in my reply to that chat, I think there were some seriously outrageous claims. I think someone was claiming Fantasia to be a keeper, despite having a 5-round average of 57. But yeah, I think I am a couple spots behind most in that situation there. But I think come the end of the year, I think I'll have an okay team. But yeah, how was your week, and what are the best primo targets for you this week?
This week torched me. I dropped a K in ranks from 2,000 to 3,000, and a lot of factors went into that. One, I had for the second week in a row, I had over 300k in the bank, which was all right last week. So I actually jumped in the ranks. This week it torched me because I had a couple of extra rookies on field that no one else had. So that really costed me. Bo's injury was just a disaster. 45 on the field for one of my. Now he's obviously a fake premium now, so that's fantastic. And just like the likes, he's having this 400k in the bank. The only reason I obviously did it was because there's no rookies to bring in. this week. So I think lots of people did the double downgrade last week, which I did. I did a sideways and a downgrade. So I had the likes of, Jai Farah and Harrison Jones on the field, and I think they combined for like 100, and it just wasn't great. Tommy Powell as well, 45, and Zach Merritt getting 10 for 64, just torched me. So not great. Looking to bounce back to this week and next week. I'm gonna be. Well, I'm just gonna run you through my team. Really, I'm gonna be very selfish here. I'm gonna be holding Bose. He's gonna stay on my bench for. Hopefully, he can be back after his bye. I just got to get these rookies on the field, and I just can't afford to waste literally just one trade on him because it sets back my team. So I'm going to keep him. What would you do? I've got to field 2 out of 3 of these players. It's Highmore, Nathan Murphy, and Kajitskis. It would be Highmore and Murphy straight away, and I'm probably still going to do that because he's playing Carlton at the G. Do you reckon I'll bench Cozzy because that's the way I'm leaning? But what do you reckon?
Well, do you think Highmore's going to play?
Yeah, that's a very good question. If he doesn't play, that's sort.
Yeah, well, I think definitely start Murphy, and then
if he comes back, that says this defense is
he should. Murphy should be back. He should be, and I think he's a good scorer. So definitely Murphy.
Let's say those 3 are playing.
Yeah, I'd back in. I trust defenders more than forwards, so I'd back in Highmore and Murphy. Yeah. But there is a chance that Kashitsky goes big on your bench, so that would be sad. Yeah,
exactly. I'm gonna keep that. Bont McRae huge, Oliver huge, Merritt and Tom Mitchell, who's been the most frustrating trade in this year.
He sucks.
I brought him in for danger after round 1. It's just been the worst move. Could have gotten Walsh. Could have gotten
2 points
Lyons.
per touch. It's a joke.
I know. It's been a disaster. I could have been much higher in the ranks, but he's cooked me. Tom Powell, everyone's jumping off him. I'm going to hold him on for a little bit longer. I don't really understand everyone jumping off him. I know he's got a break even of 100, but a couple of decent 80s and he'll be fine. And he's got the abilities to do so. Everyone's forgetting he's 18 years old. He's literally 2 years younger than us. He's going to have a downgrade. He's going to have a down game. James Jordan, huge. Collie Dawkins, huge. Not confident on this week, though. Grundy, gone. Yeah, right. Captain's gone. Should have gone Oliver in hindsight. But I thought the prospect of Gorn rocking by himself was too attractive. But should have read more into it. Knew Oliver was safer. And given it was a little bit wet or overcast conditions, Oliver was probably the better go, but didn't do that, obviously. Then Aaron Hall, huge inclusion this week. Did very well for me. Impey, Zeeble, solid. Chad Warner, just sort of racking up these 50, 60s, but he's never the biggest problem in my team, so he's hanging in there. And then obviously Jones and Farah, terrible. So with my 427K, I've got to hold Bose, field Highmore and Murphy, as we said. I'm going to fix my forward line. Gone Jones and Farah straight to Dusty and Nick Hind, who are both, by the look of it, but the way the forwards are going, are both keepers. So going to back those 2 in. Now my forward line's looking a lot better with Zeeble, Hind, Hall, Impey, Martin, and Chad Warner. So basically just one upgrade there left in Warner. Once Bose comes back, one upgrade left there, but I'm going to be doing that next week. I'm going to hopefully go Cozzy to short. I've done the calculations, and by doing a downgrade and upgrading Cozzy, I need short to get no more than about 96, which is like his break even. So I'm going to have my fingers crossed this weekend that short only gets that amount. But yeah, then that'll be a full primo defense, 5 out of 6 primo forward, full primo ruck, obviously. And then just got to focus on fixing up the midfield. Still got Powell, Jordan, and Collie Dawkins to upgrade. But yeah, I think a few people are maybe 1 or 2 moves ahead of me, but I elected to save, I think, trades for 1 extra week early on in the season. So after making trades this week, I've still got 16 left. So I'm not even halfway through them yet. I've planned for my buys ages ago, so I think I'm going to be fine for them. That's one comment made before disaster. I'm going to be revisiting that one in a few weeks. But I'm not even halfway through the trades, or just about halfway through. I've only got about 5 upgrades to go. So this year, slightly different strategy of just using up most of your trades at the start just to get a full primo team, so that when you've got 10 trades left in the last 10 weeks, You don't have to make upgrades. All you've got to do is sideways trades. You only use one. So you're just hoping, worst case scenario, there's like one injury a week. So it's definitely helped the rank, that strategy. I mean, not this week, but overall. I'm praying that Leon Cameron plays Matthew Flynn for one more week. I don't think he will, because if he doesn't play this week, I think he's just going to go for me, because he's then not going to play until after their bye. I've worked it out. It doesn't take a genius to work that out, but their bye is like 2 weeks away. So they're just going to play Mumford for the next 2 weeks, which is what they've been doing. And then they'll give him his week off during the bye, and then Mumford will just play after the bye again. So we're not going to see Flynn for a while if we're going by Leon's tactics. So if Flynn doesn't hold his spot, he's going to be going for me. If he does and then gets dropped, he'll be going as well. So it'll be probably finally time to cash him in. And yeah, it's looking all right. I can't wait until I get these rookies off the field, because I just can't wait to see what this team's going to look like in about a month or so. But yeah, it's my extensive look into my team that no one else cares about. But it's coming along nicely. A gutting 2-point loss to the Invincibles in one of the leagues to Jack Grender. But yeah, apart from that, it's going okay. But yeah, really gutting to lose over a K in my season rank to 3,215. But hopefully we can rise back up.
Yeah, I think it sounds like you're pretty well equipped for buys, so hopefully you soar back up then. Yeah, I just remembered I had 500k in the bank, so the fact that I didn't get like 1,800, I'm actually okay with that. I did the double downgrade like you. I went Poulter and RCD. They were just too tempting to knock back. But when you were talking, it just made me remember a few things. I have to say, Max Gorn's been shite for me. I didn't start with him. And then everyone was like, oh no, you've got to have the 2 primo rucks. You got to do it. And then I did it about 4 weeks ago. And I think he's gone over 110 like once since I've got him. Yeah. So yeah, that's been a bit shattering, because I thought I was getting a certified like 130 plus every week there. But anyway, but also another thing, I calculated it this week after Toby Green's injury. I know everyone's had injuries, but I'm going to appeal for some sympathy here. I've had 7 injuries to 400k plus players, so I feel like I've been a bit stiff there. I won't name them because some of them are seriously shit players, but we'll keep it a mystery, so you think it's like danger and stuff, but it's really not. It's like Liam Duggan, but anyway. So yeah, and then another thing, we forgot to talk about this in the normal footy part, but the Essendon coach, don't know his name, is it Rutten or something? But yeah, him complaining about Zach Merritt getting tagged, grow up.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, bro. Just grow up. But yeah, anyway, I just wanted to touch on that. But I was looking at the in the mix, so I'm pretty excited this week. Apparently, Waterman's back.
Hopefully.
And then apparently, this is according to the in the mix, which is it's always a bit more aggressive in terms of dropping in promotions. And then they reckon Josh Tracy is also back for Freo, which, to be honest, doesn't really matter for me.
Doesn't matter.
I'm not going to trade him out, and he has the same buy as Gawn and Grundy, so he's never really going to play for me. But, the less DMPs, the better, I guess.
One thing about that in the mix, they've listed Sam Hayes to come in for 9 weeks straight.
Yeah, they actually
hasn't gotten a gig, and this week it happened again. So I'm not sure how much I trust in the mix, but yeah, it's always a great read. But Sam Hayes got to be unluckiest footballer going by that.
Yeah, I don't even read it. I just scan for my Supercoach names.
Yeah.
I saw Heimel's meant to get dropped. Anyway.
Yeah.
But my primo targets this week, I'm looking at Doherty and Guthrie right now. I think they're both certified premiums in their positions. I think I'm just going to leave my forward line for a little bit. But now I was thinking about it, and even though Doherty's a gun, I'm thinking of going 2 premium mids because they're going to score more than premium defenders. So it's either going to be Guthrie and Bont or Guthrie and Doherty. So we'll see.
You can do this? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I've got 500k. So
yeah,
and I'm trading out Toby Green. So I've got cash to burn, and also I think my megapod Jack Buckley is leaving now. He peaked at 395k. I think he got to. So he earned
Oh,
me
that's not
like
bad, actually.
he earned me a solid like 170, 160k. So he's done all right, but yeah, the scoring's starting to fall, and at this point, he's struggling to get on my field. So I'm not going to have 400k roughly sitting in my bench. So I think Green and him are going to be gone. So I might be left with a little bit of money next week anyway. But so Doherty and Guthrie are likely, potentially Guthrie and Bont. But if you need a forward, I know you hopped on him last week, but Aaron Hall, or the week before, I can't remember what you said, but Aaron
Yeah, last
Hall.
week.
Aaron Hall's very tempting, and then another midfielder if you need someone else. Jared Lyons is still under owned, which is pretty weird, but he's a beast. And then the rookies to look at this week. I don't think there's too many spicy ones on the bubble, but I would watch if Lockie Jones returns. However, I'm still not even that sure about his job security. So I would probably look at the three guys who have played 3 games. That's RCD, Caleb Poulter, and Nathan Murphy. If you haven't got them already, I've got all three, and I'm sure a lot of people have all three already, but they've only had one price rise, and I think all three of them are really good rookie options. I know for me personally, Murphy and Poulter don't have a good buy, but it is round 14, so you've got time to plan for that one, I guess. But yeah, Lockie Jones is probably the only one of interest, but he's not even predicted to come back this week. So yeah, that's a bit sad on the rookie front. So I'm very glad I doubled down to last week when there were some good options. But any other rookies you want to mention?
No, I haven't even looked at the rookies this week, and I think I knew that from last week. I was doing a couple of double upgrades this week to Dusty and Hind. So I was more looking at rookies to get out. So and yeah, even to touch on that, I was looking at who to downgrade to next week, and there's no one. Like the most appealing one was Ronan O'Connor from Adelaide, and even he was in the mix to get dropped. So
Yeah, so
yeah, if I do a downgrade next week and it's not Flynn to a non-playing player, it's going to have to be Scott to, well, either a guy that's just played one game or a debutant. So yeah, I haven't even bothered to look at rookies this week and last week. It's more about if there's any to come in the next 2 weeks, because I might have to bite the bullet and go a game or two early on them. But it is what it is. Yeah, just none at the moment really. Sort of dried up, but I think in the mix has a few of them coming in. Like I just question their accuracy, but I think there's a few sort of bubbling around in the seconds that are hopefully going to get some games soon. So fingers crossed they do, but yeah, none at the moment really. It's a bit of a there's not a lot of life in the rookie lake at the moment.
yeah, thankfully I've kind of loaded up the last 3 or 4 weeks, so I'm not really that stressed about it at the moment. But yeah, can't lie. The next month, I know it's not ideal in buys. You want everyone to be playing, but there might be a few 102.4 downgrades just to give me a loophole and some bulk cash. But we'll see how we go. All right, it's been a long one, but we'll kick on to our preview. I actually can't lie. I think this is an easy week for tipping, and I guess it's arguably an easy week for betting, but it never is in sport. But there's a couple ones that I'm not sure on, but especially I think it's the sad day. There's about 3 or 4 that I'm pretty confident in. But my sure bet of the week, even though I think Gold Coast will be competitive and I think they might bounce back after really disappointing last week, I just can't see Geelong losing to them. Geelong, GMHBA is obviously one of the toughest places to go to and get a win. Geelong are in pretty good form now. They're starting to hit their straps, and I just can't see them losing to this out of form Gold Coast side. So that's my sure bet of the week. What's your sure bet of the week, mate?
Yeah, Geelong against Gold Coast. Not much more to be said. I think they'll just monster them. I think this same match last year, Gold Coast were in it for a little bit. They were actually ahead. I think in the second or third quarter, I think Benny King was on fire, but Geelong eventually ran over the top of them. Hopefully, Gold Coast do the same and continue up this week, but unfortunately, I think Geelong will just be too good. Simple as that.
Yeah, believe that was the match of Matt Rao's death, but that's shout out to
Death,
Matty Rao.
yeah.
But yeah, that's where the Brownlow dream came crashing down. But upset of the week, I'll be honest, I've only actually tipped one upset, and it's look at this point, I probably should stop tipping them because they've dogged me twice. We said it last week, but I'm going to say it again. I think Freo will upset Sydney. I wouldn't listen to this because I overrate Freo and I underrate Sydney. So it's a recipe for disaster, but they're paying $1.94, so it's about even odds at Optus Stadium. Freo's pretty good at home, a bit like West Coast. I think they might bounce back after a disappointing away loss to Essendon. Sydney, they might be a little bit complacent after a great start to the year, and Freo might catch them napping. But yeah, realistically, Sydney will win. But let's back in Freo. Why not? What's your upset of the week?
I've actually got Freo in there as well. I know that the odds are very even at the moment, but I think it's a typical Freo performance where they are going to have that, very sort of heartless loss against a team like the Bombers where they should beat them, and then they're going to come back home and beat a similar team, and then we're all going to think, they're growing. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they won. I'll probably tip them. Don't mind the Tigers against the Lions. Could see another huge dusty, 25 plus 4 goal performance. On paper, I think it's still pretty even though Richmond have got their injury woes at the moment. But on grass over in Brisbane, Brisbane are very, very good. So, and then just a couple of, I'm not gonna include them in this segment, but I'm just gonna sort of float it out there. I don't think Adelaide against the D's is the worst call ever to be made. I know this is going to come back to bite me. The D's are obviously 9-0. Adelaide are obviously rebuilding. But, I mean, the Crows in front of their home crowd. Tex is coming back. The D's, I think they were sort of holding their breath a little bit in the Carlton game, but obviously won. The Crows did it against the Cats. We can see, I know if you ever watch Fox Footy, you can see that pressure gauge that they often pop up. I can see the Crows having that on max level this whole game on the weekend. I think they're going to be fired up. They're obviously playing at 4:35, which I don't know. I don't know that when they beat the Cats, it was in the daytime and everyone just got up. And I think something similar could happen here. I'm not sure. I'm just sort of floating it out there. I'm not going to put anything more into it because it won't get up, obviously, or probably won't. But I'm just going to let that sit there for a while and let it simmer. And the same goes with the Saints and the Dogs. We match up against them well. We have upset them a few times in the last few years. But I'm going to be a bit more pessimistic on the Saints because I'm a pessimistic supporter and I just don't think Rob is going to get up there. We're going to be way too good and we could lose by 10 goals. But we match up well against them and we obviously came back after the COVID break last year in round 2 and turned it on at Marvel and beat them. And there have been a couple of instances in the past, like I said. But I'm going to float those two out there to the two top teams in the comp right now that I wouldn't be surprised if there was one upset in there. And if there was two, then call me a genie. But I'm just going to leave it there.
Pretty spicy, actually. I don't mind either take. The other one I'm interested in, well, there's a couple. You mentioned Richmond. I don't mind that. This week I did the same thing. I did my 9 tips, put my margins next to them. The other smallest margin is West Coast. I actually said West Coast will win by 1 point because for me it's a bit of a flip of a coin. So I will be tipping West Coast. They are the favourite, but I guess that means I think GWS are a solid chance there. So they're the underdog at home. The most appealing betting lines of the week, I'll be honest, there's not too many. Most of my predicted margins matched up with the handicap. As you mentioned, I think Richmond with a 16.5 handicap is pretty solid. I've got the Lions winning narrowly. I've got it by 5 points at the moment. But so Richmond, the Lions with a 16.5 handicap, I guess they're the team that's being handicapped there. I think Richmond won't get blown out. I can't see Richmond getting smashed. So I think it could be a close one. They could even win. So I think at the line, they're decent. And then Essendon, they're a tough team. I know I was saying they're consistent before, but I do like to tip against them losing, and they usually prove that wrong. But they're playing North Melbourne. North Melbourne coming off a win, probably less, they might be less up and about to get their first win of the year.
The place will still be recovering from their celebrations on the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. So the Lions only 19.5. Essendon have been in decent form, so I think Essendon could blow them out of the water, and I think 19.5 is pretty small. That's only 3 goals, basically. So I've got Essendon by 30, and I think that's okay. So they're the only ones I'm interested in. Are there any you want to mention?
Well, this is why I will jump on Adelaide. I think plus 31.5 against the D's isn't bad at all. I don't think they'll get blown. I know we saw it a few weeks ago against the Giants where they did get blown out of the water at home. But I don't know. I think it's a reasonable chance this line to get up. I think they'll turn it on. The D's aren't known for blowing teams out of the water, and I think 31.5 points is very doable for Adelaide. The Cats can give them 42.5, get them to win by more than that against the Suns. I don't think it's that bad. And I know I just said that there could be an upset brewing, but the Dogs at 23.5 isn't bad at all to beat Saints by more than 4 goals. Look, probably will happen. We saw it last week against the Cats. You know, they got us by 3+ goals, which we should have won, but there you go. So, yeah, Dogs every chance as well at Marvel. You know, I'm feeling Bont and all that are going to be huge, but like I said, upset brewing. So, the only one I'm really going to be talking up there is the Crows because the Cats similarly. Since Jeremy Cameron's come, they've started to really take advantage of their quality list and quality attack, especially. So I'm going to have Adelaide as my favourite line of the week there, followed by the Cats and the Dogs ones. But yeah, like I agree with you. There's nothing too appealing this week in the markets. Might try and save a little bit of money this week. Got 4 bonus bets and might just be using them. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, we'll see if those lines get up.
Are you going to any games this week, mate?
I might be going to Saints Dogs, regrettably, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I think I'll be going to Port Collingwood, the battle of the black and white stripes, I guess it is, the Magpies.
Oh, yeah, that'll be great, yeah.
Yeah, I think Port will win easy, but probably will still get down with your boy Pilch. So that's it for the episode. Another comprehensive review and preview of round 9 and 10, respectively. Think we did pretty well today. I said last week was... Did I say last week was an 8? I think I'll give us a 9 today.
Yes. It's a 10 brewing next week.
Yeah, that we're on... I can't see why it can't happen. But me forgetting Caleb Daniel has brought us down to a 9 from a 10. So that's on me. That's on me, boys. I'll be back bigger and better next week. But once again, as always, thanks for joining me, mate.
No problem. It's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, and that's an hour and 15 minutes of pure waffle, and we've loved every minute of it. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining me, Ro, and we'll see you all next week. Cheers.